Bump and Run with Bernie and Dahlby. Presented by Burrito Express, your local burrito joint. Now, here's Brett Bernheisel and Steve Dahlby.
All right, well, here we are. I took a week off. We were busy. And I went to Vegas. And in honor of me going to Vegas, this is what I came back with. A quarter. This is show 25. This is what I've got remaining from I have a few more quarters, but not many. But this is show 25, Dahlby. Dahlby, how was the Players Championship? It looked like the weather was a lot of fun to be with.
Yeah, it was fine on Tuesday, and it was nice on Wednesday morning when we played. Well, Troy played 9 holes. He played. Well, what did he do? He played nine. He played the front 9 on Tuesday, the back 9 on Wednesday. On Wednesday is when the caddies hit on the 17th hole. So he played Wednesday with Robert Streb, who's his best friend out there on tour, and then Streb likes Peter Malnati, and so we strolled out to the 10th tee, thinking it was 3, and got in line. I think we were second or third group in line, and there was one guy that was just kind of standing there by himself waiting, and they asked if he wanted to play along, and it was Paul Casey. And so it was Paul Casey and Peter against Streb and Troy. And after 7 holes, after 7 holes, Paul was asking Troy what his Venmo was, because he was depositing $100 in his account. And then the funny thing was after 18, Casey said, "Hey, Peter, I'm sorry, I wasn't much help at all." And Peter's the nicest guy, and he's like, "Nah, it's no problem." And Casey, and without being cocky, he said, I'm generally better Thursday to Sunday than I am on Wednesdays. And this tournament obviously didn't finish yesterday, but he proved himself right that once the bell rang, except for his first hole, triple bogey on his first hole of the tournament, Paul Casey had a nice event.
Yeah, he did. So talk about and not so much the practice rounds, and we'll talk about the tournament, but I kind of want to get what is a tour player, so you can explain to the listeners what happens when the weather becomes shitty, and some players that even take a shot, the second day. What is the mindset, and how do you prepare yourself for what is going to transpire in the next 3 or 4 days?
Well, and I think on Wednesday, everybody knew weather was coming, and it was just a matter of how much golf was going to be played on Thursday. And then the thought was that there was going to be golf on Thursday. There'd be a delay, and then hopefully everybody was going to have a chance to get out there. That was kind of the thought. As it turned out, on Thursday, it was more that early wave. I don't know. They got in 9 to 13 holes maybe, and then they blew the whistle, and everybody was on hold, and then they were talking about getting things started. It just never really happened. And then it was Thursday. Trying to get my days right, because it just went so long that did the late wave even get out on Thursday or not? Late wave got out Thursday. Yeah, so some of the late wave, I think, started on Thursday late, but Troy was one of the last 2 times. He was second to last, and as we looked at the clock, it looked to me like he was going to be, I think he was listed at 6:40. Sundown was 6:30, and he had said, well, at least we'll go out there and practice or whatever. And the tour called him and said, if you're not going to get to hit a tee shot today, you won't play any golf, so there's no reason to come out. And so that was that. That was Thursday, so that was just a lot of sitting around. And then Friday, did he play golf on Friday?
So you don't even know when you were there. And so from
Yeah, I was there. I
from
mean, it was just so, the hard part is just is there's so much sitting around, and you're just sitting in your hotel room. I was there. I was about a half an hour away, so everything just kind of runs together, and you're looking at the weather report, and then you start thinking, okay, which wave has it better? And on Wednesday, we actually thought that late early would be the good wave, kind of looking at things. But then Thursday morning was perfect. There was no wind, nothing. It was great to play. They got to play with no wind. Then the late wave, battled rain, and then battled. Once the rain stopped, it was just wind, and then you have to come back, and then it was just crazy. And so to have a cut not happen until Sunday, I guess you could say midday,
yeah.
is quite the deal. And after the early wave finished their finally finished their first round, the cut was, if you looked at it, and it's only half of the field, but it was one under par. And then as that late wave, which I think through the cut was 3 shots worse, to have that luck, the cut went as they played from one under to one over, and then at the end of the second round, and it was kind of sad to see Scott Piercy
Oh,
made a mess on 17 and 18, and then the cut went to two real late. It was he and Malnati kind of had control of the cut, and you never. I mean, 17 is just a hole where crazy stuff happens and guys make 7 on a par 3, and then that's what he did. And he goes from 2 under to 2 over, and then makes bogey on 18 to miss the cut. So that was kind of hard to watch. And then it was still, guys had to get up early. Troy had to get up early yesterday on Sunday to finish his second round, and he had 3 holes to go. 37 degrees, and he's at what, 3 over par with 3 holes to go, 16, 17, and 18. So we're kind of thinking maybe the cut would be 2, but maybe you better get to 1. And sure enough, he hits 3-wood in there on 16 to like 7 feet and makes eagle. Then he birdies 17, and then made a bogey on 18. A lot of people made bogey on 18, so he made the cut, which was nice because he came out of that wave that was just you can't say it was unfair, because you're going to get the bad wave, you're going to get the good wave. It tends to work out through a season, but man, for a wave to be 3 shots different in 2 rounds, that's a pretty hard disadvantage.
what do you think of 17? To me, watching, I don't even, I mean, Kepka made it look, stupid, but I mean, is that hole even a fair enough hole to play in 20 to 30 mile an hour winds? I mean, I know it's from a fan's perspective, oh, this is great. Let it rain, let it blow, let them hit it in the water. Let him hit a Patton Kazire, to the island with a hosel rocket. But I mean, from a player's perspective, for coach's perspective, what do you think of that hole? And is it maybe too unfair when the wind is blowing that hard?
I think that 16, 17, and 18, that's all about drama. That's what Pete Dye intended. He intended for things to happen. He intended for 16 to be a hole that if you hit a good drive, you can make eagle. 17 is a hole where if you hit a good shot, you can make 2, but you can also make 7. And I think there were guys today that made a mess of 17, but it wasn't very windy. They were flag hunting, those guys that hit it in the water. That pin with that back right pin is only maybe 3 off the edge of the green, maybe 4. So just a slight push and you're in the water. But I think with no wind, it's a pretty stock shot. you throw in the 20-mile-an-hour wind, like you said, Bernie, and gusts of, I think when Kepka hit it, there was just gusting all over the place. And so, is it unfair? I don't think it's unfair. I think it's just what it's all about. And I mean, you can get lucky and you can get unlucky. And maybe when Kepka's group was up there, it was at its worst. Troy yesterday morning when he played when it was so cold, it was I think it was 132 to the pin.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
30,
think
I
he
think
said he hit a
34, but
little,
yeah.
I think he said he hit a little 8-iron and hit an 8-iron because he's trying to make birdie. So it was a back pin. So he had 8-iron, which would normally be a 165 club. He might have taken a little bit off, but he was trying to make sure he got it back there in the cold and into a little bit of a breeze. So, that's just what happens. But I think that it's fine. It's a good hole. It's like I think the 17th hole at TPC Scottsdale. I don't love that green at all. I think the green's kind of silly, but I think for drama, it's fine. And and that's what in some ways PGA Tour golf is entertainment. So I think people got their fill of entertainment this week once they got to watch golf and not raindrops.
I mean, Paul Azinger's a tough watch. I mean, I know you were at the tournament and you probably didn't get to see a lot of television coverage. And I know your wife, you once said on this program that your wife said she wants you to mute Azinger when he's on. And I agree. I mean, him and Dan Hicks, they were all over each other as far as like talking, and every commentator, whole, whether it's Faraday or whatever, always has to get Azinger's opinion before the shot's being hit. And I think there's a point to where that's a little bit too much. Azinger said, "Oh, it's the second ball in the water on 17 today," and Gary Koch has to go out and correct him and say, "No, Paul, you're wrong. It's the 12th shot that's hit in the water today." And then you think to yourself, "What is this guy even watching? How could you only?" So things like that. It's Azinger to me is getting hard to watch, and I know back in the day when we were on the radio, I wasn't a big fan of him then, but then when he went to NBC, I thought he became better. And now I am back to where we were 4 or 5 years ago, that I can't stand watching him. Did you get his chance? What do you think of Azinger, I guess, before we move on?
Well, so I watched a lot today, and I didn't watch much because the hotel that I was at did not have the Golf Channel, which was probably okay. I just don't think he does a very good job. I think some people really like him, but he to me, he kind of tries to be this good old boy humor, and I don't see it. And like you said, Bernie, I don't know that he's always correct. You can like or dislike Brandel Chambly, but he brings with him factual information that he studies. And if he talks about a golf swing, he knows a lot about the golf swing. And so in that respect, whether you like him or you don't like him, at least the guy's done his homework. And I just don't see it with Azinger.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. Let's go to the 18th hole. Let's go to 17. There's no way Cam Smith purposely hit that ball right of the flag, correct? I mean, that was a 7-8 yard push, right?
I will look where he was aimed. It looked to me like he was taking it on. I think you're right. I think he was probably trying to hit it 2-3 yards left of the hole and then have it take that slope. But yeah, it probably was a push. But it was a hell of a time to do that, and it reminded me of Ricky Fowler a few years ago doing the same thing and kind of taking control of the golf tournament. The thing that was so impressive with Cameron Smith today, other than the mustache and the hair, he made 4 bogeys today and still won the golf tournament. He made 10 birdies. He gained. We talk about strokes gained and you have your ball striking strokes gained, you have your short game. He gained today over 4 shots just in putting, and that's an enormous amount of strokes gained putting, because with soft greens, medium speed greens, everybody was making a lot of putts out there. So for him to be 4 shots better on the greens than guys that are already making more putts than normal, that was incredible. And it was just, we talk about a lot, these guys just, they have days where you just can see that it's their day. And it didn't look like it was going to be his day when he hit that snap hook that only went, it went 150 yards or so on 16.
Ooh.
That thing
Ooh.
left. That was bad. But to hack it out there and do what he did, and get himself still in a position to go to 17 without doing any damage. And then you look at Paul Casey, who hits a perfect drive down the middle of the fairway on 16, and the ball rolls into a pitch mark, which wasn't his pitch mark, so he had to hit it out of the pitch mark. You just, there's certain things in golf where you just kind of think, damn, it's his day. And it was his day to win $3.6 million on a $20 million purse, $5 million more than last year. So, we talk about the PGA Tour and what they're doing to maybe fight off this Saudi Arabia tour and some of the other world tours. Well, adding 5 million to this purse probably is a good way to keep some guys interested in staying here.
How the hell did Cam Smith's caddy let him hit driver on 18? Just, and somehow just tell me this. He's hit 3 drives prior to this on 18 this week. 1 went in the right trees and 2 went in the water. You have a 3-shot lead. He knows he has a 3-shot lead. Even if Lahiri makes birdie on 17, which he did, you're still up 2. Okay, why are we hitting driver? Why are we putting all the bad demons in his head? And it goes back to the stupid thing that Azinger said. Well, he's got to be thinking about the snap hook he hit on 16. No, I don't think he was thinking about hitting the snap hook on 16. But my question is, why is he hitting driver? Why hasn't his caddy told him, listen, this is where we're at? Because, he got up and down from 57 or 58 yards on 18. What a great 4th shot it was. But disaster was right in front of him. I mean, this was Adam Scott all over again, 15 years ago or whatever, with a tournament in hand to risk something so stupid when he could hit 4-iron to the front edge of the green, make no worse than 5, no worse. But now he brings 6 into the equation with the drive, and then the chip out. I mean, I was holding my breath, and then it went in the water, and I'm thinking, oh my God, he's actually going to lose this tournament.
Well, and that is the the interesting thing that you say, because we watched Keegan Bradley about 20 minutes before that do the same thing. He hit it out in the right rough, and then he tried to chip it out, and he hit it in the water, and he wasn't going to win the tournament, but it was eerily similar to what we were seeing. And I don't know, as a caddy in that situation, did his caddy, do you think his caddy choked?
Yes, 100%. And I wasn't going to use that word, but you're 100% right. Because I think the momentum that Smith had after making birdie on 17, I think in this caddy's mind, I don't know his name, I think in his mind, he's like, okay, he's probably already went through every scenario possible of what Smith might ask him, might not say to him or whatever, knowing, in his heart, maybe in his gut or whatever, that it's an iron or a 5-wood or whatever off the last tee. But when Smith grabs the driver, I think he choked, because I think it was to the point where I can't take him off this shot, because if something goes bad hitting the layup club that I want him to hit, now the responsibility is falling on me. So I think either choked or he gave up.
Yeah, and you may be right. Maybe it's not a choke. Maybe it's just okay, I'm in a position where I can't say anything because I don't want it on me, and I'm going to let him do his thing. And that might be the difference, though, between, and I don't know his caddy, but that might be the difference between Cam Smith's caddy and Bones or Steve Williams. Those guys that might get in there and say, hey, how are we going to do this? And bring out some different options and then let the player hit it, because you would think, like you said, something down the right side of the fairway that's short, then something that's just out in front of the green, and then chip and putt would probably be I don't know, maybe not the right play, but a play. But I think there were two mistakes. One, obviously hitting driver and you put yourself in a bad position, but then the chip out was that was awful. You're trying to hit a ball 20 yards and you hit it 80 into the water. And then he is a great wedge player, and this is why everybody should work on their wedge game, because like you said, if he had 57 yards, I don't know exactly what he had, but he hit it in there and taps it in, and he's the champion. But he did give Lahiri a chance. However, I would have rather that chance have been, okay, I'm going to give him a chance, but I'm going to hit it in the fairway. I'm going to knock it up there and do it that way, and maybe give him a chance and still give myself a chance to make par and just be done with it, as opposed to I'm going to, hit driver this way, because it's not going in the water. So it's going to be going, it's going to be heading. His target has got to be with that driver. It's got to be kind of right center. So anything that's pushed slightly is going to be too far. And so, I think they really brought trouble into play, and in some ways they're lucky to escape with bogey and a win.
And my comments and my theory is, I wasn't there, so I was just as a casual fan. Well, I wasn't really casual, but as a fan of when he pulled the metal out of his bag, I thought it was 3 metal or 5 metal. I didn't think there was any way it was going to be driver. And like I said, I wasn't there, so I don't know if Smith said to him, "We're hitting driver. Don't try to talk me out of this. No matter what I'm hitting driver." So we don't know that conversation, but I was just completely shocked. And then, he hit it. So he hit it right. And he actually got a break that had ended up where it ended up, because it could have even been farther right of that. Then who knows? Maybe he makes the same score. I don't know. But yeah, he brought complete disaster into that. But the funny thing, well, not really funny, but the thing I noticed is when he hit it in the water, and this leads me to my next thing here. When he hit it in the water, he was so concerned about where exactly it went in that he wanted to make sure he did things right, which was the correct thing to do. Because, if he takes a bad drop there, or it's 5 yards too far, or whatever it might be, he's going to get some criticism, which led to a discussion today on the 16th hole in a group that featured Joel Damon, Daniel Berger, and Victor Hovland. And if you didn't get a chance to see it, it's all over social media, that Daniel Berger hit his second shot into the water right on 16. Now, you and I have both watched this video. You and I both have different answers to what really happened. But the whole thing was that Daniel Berger was now going up to where he thought his ball had crossed the red line into the water, to where, in your opinion and my opinion are different on this, I thought Joel Damon started this. You think it was Victor Hovland. They both end up agreeing that where Daniel Berger was going to take his drop was completely out of line and way too far. Now, Damon didn't think it crossed any part of the water. Hovland thought it might have crossed 60 or 70 yards back. This ended up becoming almost a 5-minute ordeal. Now a rules official has come into play on this. And I talked to my father about this specific deal to ask, what he thought about this. Now, Berger finally gave in to hitting it, whatever those two guys they came up with. But he was very adamant about saying, I'll hit it here because these guys think it went in here, but this is a bad drop. This is a bad drop. I saw my line. I saw where it went in. I know it's up there. Where then Joel Damon is like, listen, I was 5 yards to the right of you. There's no way this ball even crossed. Then Hovland's like, I'm very skeptical about where you're going to drop this ball. And the rules official had to come in. So what my father, who has been a rules official for the PGA of America, PGA Tour, whatever, for many, many years, said, if it was a one-on-one deal, let's say it was a Berger and Damon playing in a twosome, and Berger said it went in there, and Damon said it went in there. It was a one-on-one deal. The player's going to win. The player that hit the shot is going to win that argument. But in this situation, since Hovland and Damon, two people, against what Berger said, so it's 2-on-1, the more evidence and more information you have, then the 2-on-1 wins that particular argument. Now, I know that Damon had an issue a few years ago with a Korean player. I don't remember the guy's name.
Sung Kang.
But
Sung Kang.
Yeah,
Sung
you're
Kang.
right. That's who it is. It was almost got into a very maybe
that one was
verbal physical deal.
It was very heated, and I don't think, and I may be wrong, I don't know that Joel Damon signed his card. I don't think Joel Damon signed his card that day. I think a rules official had to sign his card because Damon said, I'm not signing it, because he was so convinced that the drop was so bad that he wouldn't do it. And that's an interesting situation where, you have a player's scorecard, and one of the things you do is once you figure out, you sign it, and then you give it to the player, and then the player attests it, and now it's official. Well, what if somebody doesn't sign it? I think that's what happened in that case. But in this case, what did your dad think about the rules official saying, well, let's come up with a compromise?
And so for people that didn't see this part, it wasn't so much a compromise, but he also said, he said compromise, let's get a ball in play and get this thing moving, which, he was trying to say, we've been out here long enough. Let's come up with an answer. Because in that situation, the rules official can't tell. He's not going to be like, okay, I believe these guys. You're going to drop it here. Let's move on, because it goes back to what my father said. It's a two people saw this way. One person saw it this way. So the two people are going to win over the one. But he didn't necessarily agreed with the rules official. He thought the rules official took way too long to get out there to fix this issue.
I thought that the rules official was failed on that situation, in that I didn't like that he even used the word compromise. And then if he was trying to hurry him up, I also don't like that, because let's get this thing right. And there have been times where a player will look in the camera. They got cameras all over the place, and they can send the replay back, and they could have had everybody take a look and try to come up with something, because I looked on Shane Bacon. You sent me to Shane's Twitter, and he had something from PGA Tour Live, and I actually think that looking at that from behind, now when you're behind, you don't know if that camera's a little bit left or a little bit right, and so I would think with a right-handed player, it probably was a little bit to the right, the camera. And so that would make the ball look like it's starting more left if the camera was a little bit to the right. So anyway, but looking at that, to me, it looked like it started left of where Hovland said he thought he saw it start. It almost looked to me like he dropped it in the right spot, even though he didn't think it was the right spot. To me, it looked like it was in the right spot, which was back 40 or 50 yards from where he thought it should be, because I think where Damon was pointing was more like 120 yards, because that's right where that pond kind of, the edge of the pond, it would be 120, 130 yards. So I think he was talking another 60, and Hovland too, back further. And so I actually think that maybe where he dropped it might have been the right spot, but it certainly was not where Berger thought it should be. And honestly, it wasn't where Hovland or Damon thought it was going to be. So I don't know where you thought it went in, but, Berger moves it left to right. But to me, it wasn't a hard left to right. It was something that kind of started and it kind of fell. So I think it was further back than where Daniel thought it was.
Did this get blown up because they're playing for the money they're playing for this week and the extra FedEx Cup points? I mean, or is this the first round at I don't know. Just pick another tournament that has water or whatever, and we're not. It's the first round, and we're not overly concerned. But Berger's in contention, Hovland's in contention, and Hovland's having some hiccups coming down the stretch. Damon's playing like shit today. I mean, is that something? Is this something? I guess is this something that will fuel over down the road? That are these guys going to be able to let this thing go and move on? I mean, because that he made 6, fine, get it. He could have made 5. I don't know. I mean, $100,000 to that guy. I don't know. 40 FedEx Cup points. I mean, was it the situation, or do you think you think what happened today we're all done hearing about?
I don't think that at that point that anybody's thinking about as they're walking down 16. I don't think anybody's thinking about it's $100,000 or it's 40 more FedEx points. I think they're all just trying to still make birdies and do what they're supposed to do. And whether Damon is playing poorly or well, there's a lot that can happen on 16 and 17. You can have a 3-shot. You can have 3 shots go the right way in a hurry. So I think that it's just Victor and Joel being pretty adamant about where they thought this ball went, as well as Daniel. He thought it was up there. Victor and Joel have an obligation to protect the field. And so
Correct.
I think that was what they were doing. I think they were trying to protect the field, meaning that your golf's a game of honor. We all, in some ways, we rule ourselves. But in a situation where you aren't quite thinking that it's the right thing in a tournament, you're supposed to protect the field. And I've done that in a couple occasions when I used to play. I thought I made a couple. I did a couple things that I thought were right with regard to the tournament in general, with playing partners, and so you do that. And so when you have 3 world-class players and there's a difference in opinion, then yeah, it can get a little. I wouldn't say that it was heated, but certainly Berger was not agreeing with the other two, and the other two weren't agreeing with him. But I think that after the fact, they'll all look at these different. They'll look at the shot. All 3 of them will look at the shot, and I think everything's fine. And if it's not fine, it doesn't really matter. They're not buddies. They're competitors. So if they carry, if it carries on, it carries on. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I don't think it matters.
Jay Monahan came out this week and said he wants to talk to Phil before Phil returns to the tour, either tour. Phil hasn't reached out at all. I made a comment a couple weeks ago on this show. In my personal opinion, I think he's suspended. Monahan wouldn't. The question was asked him, but he wouldn't answer the question. Do they have to have a talk before he comes back to the PGA Tour? You think, in your opinion?
If he's suspended, and there are some people that I didn't talk to a lot of people and just ask them, do you think Phil's suspended or not? But there were some people that said they wouldn't be surprised if he was, based on kind of the comments he made and the actions that he's made over the last year with regards to World Tour. But do they have to have a conversation? No. If he's serving a suspension and that suspension is 5 or 6 events, and he could serve his 5 or 6 events and come back and play and never talk to Jay Monahan again.
So Rory came out just during the same day, the same Wednesday press conferences, and said he thinks that everybody should know who is suspended if they are suspended. And I agree with him. I know that the PGA Tour for so many years, whether it's fines or suspensions, doesn't let the general public, media, or whatever know. I think it's kind of an unwritten rule. But if you said you were talking to some players out there this week, and I'm not saying so much your guys, but the chatter or the feedback that you heard, do you agree with that? That me as a most consistent podcast host or a casual golf fan, do you think that we should know that this person's suspended? Because you look at all the other sports and people are suspended, and you hear about it all the time.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think I don't know why the PGA Tour has taken this approach that they don't want anybody to know what's going on. In some ways, you just would rather be just upfront and honest and say, "Hey, this guy's out for 5 events, or this guy's out for 10 events, and this is why," and then it's done. But the PGA Tour does it differently, uh, yeah, to me, I'd love to, just like I say, be upfront, be honest. Let's figure it out and go. And to backtrack, if Phil so chooses, whether he's suspended or not, if he chooses to get on the phone or get on the plane and go talk to or go see Jay Monahan, I think that would be good. I would prefer that they did it face to face. I think that would be a better way to do it. But like I said, he doesn't have to. But I think it would go a ways to go ahead and do so. And from a PR standpoint, it might make it easier for Phil to actually come back if he did that, because I think then you get the picture or you get the comments from Jay Monahan that, hey, you know what, we had a productive talk. I understand some things that he's concerned about, and we're going to move forward. I would think from Phil's standpoint and from Phil's camp, that would make sense. But and certainly Jay's, he's put the feeler out there. Hey, I'd welcome a chat with Phil. So it's in Phil's court. So it's kind of up to him what he does. And so we'll find out. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough when he's going to play again, and if he's going to have a conversation with the commissioner. But my recommendation would be, let's if I was Steve Loy, I think this would be what I would recommend, is that let's do this and let's try to clear the air and then move forward. And kind of like Rory also said, everybody deserves a second chance. Although Rory was critical of Phil initially, he said when was it, early this week or at the end of last week, maybe at Bay Hill, that everybody deserves a second chance. So there's that feeling from him, at least, that let's try to get this thing moving. Phil's been, for the most part, good for the game. I think the game's been good to Phil. So let's not tarnish his name too much further.
He does play Augusta, right?
Well, you would think he would. But again, this is something, that is not a PGA Tour run event. It's part of the PGA Tour, right. But the membership at Augusta National sends out their invitations. So, that would be one where, irregardless of any kind of action by the PGA Tour, he should have the opportunity to play, as long as the membership, the committee at Augusta National, feels like that, we want to give him an invitation, which they already have as a past champion. I'm sure they've sent him his invitation. I guess they could always take it back if they felt real strongly about what he said, but I don't think that's the case.
So Kevin Kisner, who had a great tournament this week, his caddy went down on the 6th hole today, and his coach was in the stands, kind of like you would be if Merritt was playing, or O'Hare, or whoever it might be, and he had to come out and caddy the last 13 holes. Does the caddy get the full 7% or 10% or whatever, or are you as a coach, are you asking for a little bit of something because you had to go out and caddy for 13 holes?
Nope, I'm not asking for a thing. I'm sure his coach is not asking for a thing. It's it's one of those things that happens. I've jumped in twice. Once in a practice round, I had to jump in for Peter Malnati's caddy. We were at Muirfield Village. It's for the workday. Remember when they played the workday and then
Yeah.
the Memorial 2 weeks in a row, and it was a practice round. And Muirfield Village is a loop. So you play the front and you go out and you come back, and then the back nine you go out and then you come back. Well, we were on the back nine and we were out. We were far away, and Malnati's caddy's back locked up. He's had some back issues, and he literally couldn't move. Had to get a cart to bring him in, and so I lugged the bag for the last 4 or 5 holes in the practice round. And then there was a time here at TPC Scottsdale where Troy was playing, and I think there must have been some kind of a delay. And it was probably a year there was frost delays, and which we'll get here sometimes. And his caddy at the time had a flight to Pebble Beach, and so it was going to be a little bit tight. And so he kind of on the last hole, and we already had this planned. He took the bag up to the green on 9. Troy was finishing on 9. He took off, and so then I came out and I just stood by the bag. Troy, putted and whatever, and then I got the stuff and we walked into the clubhouse. So it happens. I certainly didn't have to do it for 13 holes, but stuff happens. But it was interesting. I talked to Kisner on the putting green Saturday. He was warming up putting next to Troy, and I don't know Kisner very well, but I know he's a big Georgia football fan. So I said, hey, that quarterback or cornerback Ringo, and he yeah, Keely Ringo. And I said, well, Keely played high school football with my son Matthew, and so we talked a little bit about that. And that's always a good way to talk to Kevin Kisner. You talk about his Bulldogs, or then he's all set. So that's the way to approach a conversation with Kevin Kisner. Talk about Georgia football.
So Ryan Davis, our friend from Tucson, called me today because he wanted me to mention this. And so we're going to go back to gambling. We're going to start before we get to who you got, which is becoming a nightmare for me and you. He had this bet on Friday, and I want you to think about this for a second. It was a heads-up match on Friday between 2 players. Siwoo Kim versus Justin Rose, just whoever beat whoever that particular day. Okay. Justin Rose went out and shot 7 over par, 79 for the second round. Siwoo Kim came to the 9th hole, his final hole of the day during round 2, 3 over par for the day, but I think 8 over par for the tournament, and they blew the horn.
Okay.
Siwoo Kim.
No. Oh, no.
Yes. Siwoo Kim withdraws and does not come back to play his final hole. And all our friend Ryan Davis needed was for Siwoo Kim to make 9 or less to win the bet, but Siwoo withdrew, so he lost his bet. That is a bad beat.
That is a bad beat.
All right, it's time for our great segment sponsored by our friends at Burrito Express, your local burrito joint, of Who You Got? And this has become bad. I mean, this has become really bad. It's become so bad that, Dahlby, you got 2 arrows down because we weren't on last week, but the week before at Bay Hill, Schubert came out firing with Terrell Hatton, who finished 6th. I had Keith Mitchell, who finished 61st. I'll never take another guy that wears a visor again. So Hank Labodia, you're fine. And you had Paul Casey. You were a week early on Paul Casey.
I was.
Who finished 72nd in the tournament. They all made the cut, but Hatton with a second place finish. Schubert got 3 points. I got 2. You got 1. So here's the new standings right here. Shu, it's your pick for this week at Valspar. Congratulations on you're now trending upward, so I don't want to hear it from you anymore. Who you got?
Well, that's why we took off last week, right, guys? Because I won 2 in a row. You guys couldn't allow me to try to make it 3 in a row, 3 consecutive weeks. That's why we had to take a week off. I mean, I made a big. I was hooting and hollering last show because I was like, I want some respect, and then I went out and won, and then we took a week off. It's okay. I see how it is. We are gonna go with the guy who's won this tournament before, a guy who played well in the first 2 rounds this past weekend. Give me Sam Burns for the Valspar this weekend.
Okay.
Sam Burns. You know what? Yeah, I had money on Sam Burns this week. Didn't work out very well. All right, I've decided since I saw something the other day at the last minute, somebody got in the field, that I'm going to go completely off the wall here. And I know for a fact that Dahlby will not be rooting against my guy. So I'm going to take this early in the season. Give me Sean O'Hare, who got a sponsor's exemption this week into Valspar.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. The funny thing about that is I checked the field on Friday because I had time because I was sitting in the hotel room by myself. I checked the field at 5:15 p.m. because they come out at 5, and I'm scrolling through it and I see Sean's name. And I call him. I'm like, "You're in." And he's like, "What?" And he said, "I'm not." And I said, he's like, "Did I get an exemption?" He said, and so he checks. And I'm starting to look at it, and I see his name next to Phil Mickelson's. And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Phil's playing, and I look up, and Mickelson's not playing. It was last year's field. So I kind of made him happy, made him sad kind of a thing. And he was supposed to be heading to the Corn Ferry event in Louisiana, I think, this week.
Correct.
And I guess about an hour after we hung up, he got a call from the tournament director, and they gave him an exemption. So it all worked out. So he is in the field this week. You want a good ball striker at the Copperhead at Innisbrook. God, I don't know if I want to do this, but I'm going to. So
do it.
This guy, this last few days, killed it ball striking wise. I think he gained like 14 shots over the field through the course of the week. I'm going to use it earlier than I anticipated, but this is a golf course where you want to strike it well. So I'm going to take Shoes guy. I'm going to take
don't. Oh my goodness. No, don't do it. Don't do it. You got to save these big guns for the big events. Trust me, I did this with Dustin Johnson.
I'm taking Victor Hovland this week, and because I got to get this thing rolling. So we'll see if his ball striking continues, but this is a golf course where you want to hit it good, and the weather's supposed to be a little rainy on Wednesday, and then it's clearing up, light winds. Victor, all right, we're going to do it.
All right, so Burns, O'Hare, and Hovland. Dahlby, anything before we end podcast 25?
No, I'm good with podcast 25.
All right. Schubert, thank you. Sean Crespin, as always, thank you. Dahlby, 25's in the books. You know what? We might do 26 next week. We might not. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching our podcast. Have a great week, everybody.
Hit them straight, everybody.